Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. Right. I'm between you and lunch, so I'm going to race through the story of ubitricity. I'm going to try and share what we've learned rolling out over 5,500 charge points in the UK. I'm not saying everything is cookie cutter and all places are the same and all cities are the same, but I think hopefully there's a lot of interest and a lot of insights that we've gained. So, ubitricity is all about on-street residential charging. And we believe, and the reason that everybody that works for ubitricity is passionate about succeeding, is we believe that everybody should be able to transition to EVs in a convenient way as soon as they can. Now, we see two versions of the future. There's one version of the future where predominantly people with their own private driveways, with their own private charge points, they're the ones that can switch to EV in a convenient way. And there's another version of the future where everybody can, including the people who have to park on streets. And so we want to go for that second version of the future. We think it would be a real shame if the move to EVs was just dominated by those who can have their own private charge point. So what does that mean? How do you solve the problem? Do you just go and throw slow AC chargers all over every street of every city? Well, there are issues with that, because for the councils, for the residents, there's certain things you need from your city. You need uncluttered streets. You need to be wary of how you use the space in your street. You need to look after the aesthetics of the street. So the city has demands on how you would roll out new infrastructure. There are also grid issues. So the city has certain criteria and demands that we've got to keep in mind. And how about the EV drivers? You could say, right, it's very complex to put all of these individual chargers outside people's houses on the street. So why not just a few rapid hubs? But I think it's very easy to fall into a trap. And that trap is to think that EV drivers charge like a petrol or diesel car owner refuels. And when you actually talk to people who have moved to EVs, who don't have their own private charge point, what they really, really value is a slow charger very close to their home, on their street. That is their core charging need. And we see this in our data because we've got 5,700 now chargers, a lot of them in London. So we can actually see how people without those private chargers are using the network. So at ubitricity, we're trying to combine two things. We're trying to combine what residents really need as their core charging, which we believe is exactly what Aoife from Zevi was describing when she said slow neighborhood nighttime charging. That's what ubitricity is all about, delivering that at a massive scale across cities and towns. And what progress have we made? Like I said, we've deployed 5,700 chargers. Says 5,500, but we've just recently had a massive spike of installations, which is great. We've deployed them across the UK, and of course, we're really keen to move into Ireland, and that's why we're here to work with you. But how we do that is through partnering with local authorities. So local authorities and councils, they own the access to the streets and the ability for charge point networks like ourselves to put chargers in the ground on those public streets by people's homes. And what is our solution? So our key product is two things. One is an integrated charger into an existing lamppost, street light. The other one is a bollard that connects to an existing lamppost if it's at the back of the pavement. And why have we taken this approach? We've taken this approach because we believe by using existing infrastructure, you can roll out massively faster in a much more cost-effective way and very low disruption. There's less digging, there's less hardware required, and you can install a lamppost charger within 2 hours, sometimes even 1 hour. If you put a standalone AC charger in the street, dig up, new connection, new hardware, all of the foundations, it's a massively larger project. I think the important thing here is, we heard the level that Amsterdam are deploying chargers at. We have to think in our cities, in a city like Dublin, not of hundreds of chargers, but of thousands of chargers. And I found it really interesting that the gentleman from the Dublin City Council, he talked about a range of charge point numbers, could be from, I think it was 500 to 4,000. Huge range, depending on whether you're going to serve people with rapid hubs or with on-street residential charging. And from what we see from consumer behavior and needs, and if you want to get this right, you need to be looking at the upper end of that range or even beyond it. And it's the same with the UK government strategy. They gave a range of, by 2030, the UK needs between around 300,000 and 700,000 public chargers. And again, from our insights, we'd say you've got to look at the top end of that range if you want to enable the whole population and not just those with private chargers to move to EVs. So this is our solution, integrated into existing infrastructure. I'll come on to how we're working in Ireland with pilots to prove the concept. But let me share a few of the things that we've learned from working, particularly with local authorities in the UK, to see whether that resonates with you, to pass on some of the insights, because when you're talking about residential on-street charging, that is unlocked or kept locked by the local authority. And we see councils either succeed and move fast, or maybe get wrapped up in certain issues and move slowly for three main reasons. And I'll go through each of them now. So the first reason is, as a council, and we've worked with over 30 councils, like I've said, we often see EV charging strategy becoming something incredibly complex. And don't get me wrong, you do need good insights, you do need good data, and you do need a clear strategy. But you can be sure of one thing: whatever your strategy as a local authority and whatever your targeted charge point numbers are, they're going to be wrong. Because the future will prove that you need a bit more of this type of charging, a bit less of this, a bit more of these type of chargers in these locations, less there. You have to learn as you go. So I would say the councils that we see doing really well are the ones that accept there's some ambiguity at first, move fast, and focus on the one area of charging where either they prevent it from happening or make it happen. And I would say, I think we've heard about local authorities facilitating the deployment of chargers. I would say it's a lot more than that. Even if they're not delivering the actual service and they're using a third party like Ubitricity or many of the other network operators in this room, actually they've got a massive role to play because they're unlocking the ability for the network operators to deploy on the streets. And with destination charging, the local authorities don't necessarily need to get involved. It can be done between commercial partners, say a supermarket and a network operator, even with rapid charging often. You can deploy rapid charging on service stations, on commercial land. Business and office-based charging, again, that can be between the commercial sector and the network operators. But the one area which you cannot do anything as a network operator unless there's a fantastic partnership and clear process between the local authority and the network operator is on street. So that is where I would say really there is an opportunity to simplify the EV charging strategy and focus of local authorities and really go for the on-street and deploy it at scale and fast. I think secondly is we see often local authorities wondering, how are we going to locate these chargers? What are we going to do? What data are we going to use? And where we see this working best is where there's a mix of two data inputs. One is have a fantastic system to get requests from either existing EV drivers or drivers that are considering to move to EVs. And make that request process simple and robust. What often happens in the UK, I hope it doesn't happen here in Ireland, but in the UK, residents request a charge point on street to their council and it falls into a black hole. And no one ever knows who's monitoring that inbox, where's it going, what's the guarantee in terms of time of deploying a charger for that resident. It's just a one big question mark. So having a very tight process there and giving residents the evidence and the faith that if they request something, infrastructure pops up on their street within a short time period, that's key. And the other one is having data models to show where you think the demand is going to be. And they don't need to be too complex because you can check them and follow them with reality as you grow your charging network over time. And the third one is really understanding the funding from central government. So in the UK, it's interesting that actually a lot of the central funding in some years was not even used for deploying EV charging infrastructure. It was left at the table. And I think that is because it's a new area, EV charging. It's tough to get hold of as a local authority. Plus, there's the strategy questions that that I've talked about. And then there's where do you locate them? And all of this can result in a bit of a stalemate. But we really see, the councils that manage to go through, make quick decisions, they gain a lion's share of the funding. So I would say if there are local authorities in the room, learn from what we've seen, and it's really a case of grabbing that central government funding as soon as you can, because who knows how long it will last and in what form. So what have we been doing in Ireland? Well, compared to our 5,700 charged in the UK, we're making a start in Ireland. We've got 10, and we're really proud of those partnerships with Dunleary and Fingal Council. They are lamppost chargers in the main, and that requires a lot of integration with the DNO, the power supply, how they're going to be metered. Those issues are being worked out and proven. And we would love you to come over to our stand. We're somewhere in the middle of there. We've got lots of people from Ubitricity. Come and ask us about it. See whether you think it could be a solution for your local authority. And I think with the partnership and working together, we can make sure that it is the full population that can have access to moving to EVs, and not just those lucky enough with their own off-street parking who can put their own private charger in. So, yeah, please come and see us, and thank you very much.